Johnny, one thing in my life I've always dreamt about and wondered. What is barley wine?
What is barley wine? Yeah, I mean, the simple answer to what is barley wine is it's life.
It's life.
Barley wine is life.
That's what the bros say, right?
That's what the bros say. Barley wine is life. We're going to say it's a little bit... Well, it's as complicated as life itself, I would say, is the answer to what is barley wine. So strap yourselves in. We're going to be doing some serious research on here. We're going to be doing some serious tastings in here. And there's going to be some properly cross-eyed Brad as I go through a bit of beer history.
So I heard, Johnny, that really strong alcohol was great for the immune system and fighting any sort of killer bugs that might be out in the world right now. What do you think?
I think it needs to be 60% alcohol to fight off most bacteria. So we're not going to quite get there today.
We shouldn't be bathing in barley wine, then.
No, I mean, you could. You know, that's a lifestyle choice.
A sticky lifestyle choice.
It is. It won't help you with coronavirus, though.
Okay.
So, what is barley wine? I thought I knew. Until I started doing the research to check that what I knew was actually accurate. Turns out I didn't really know. I'm not a fan of the BJCP guidelines. I think they're rubbish. I think they're always out of date. And I think they're just written by one guy. If you read them properly, it's just a guy who's got a thesaurus about beer, just writing about it, mostly. The thing they've done wrong is they've invented a style that doesn't exist, and they've put definitions to it. The definitions are quite useful, though.
That's interesting.
So what I think we should do is get some beers in our glass, or else this could be a long, boring video, and then we'll talk about what a barley wine was and what a barley wine is.
Okie dokie.
So what we're cracking here is what the BJCP would call an English barley wine. This is actually a former champion beer of Britain from Coniston Brewing Co.
It smells great. I can smell it from here.
So an English barley wine is technically a strong, between 8 and 12% malt forward beer.
Yeah, I always thought barley wines were like way higher percentage than that.
No, I mean, they can go up to 12, but they can go all the way down to 8. Other than that strength and the fact that they're malt forward, there's not a huge amount to distinguish them from any other style of that strength.
Okay.
You could see them as being quite close to double IPAs, but we'll explain why they're not. You could see them as being quite close to triples and quads, depending on how dark they are. But they're not really those beers either. Obviously, there's very different yeasts involved.
I'm excited, Johnny. It's like caramelly, burnt toffee, kind of bit roasty.
Kind of caramel apple.
Yeah.
Toffee apple.
It smells great. And like when you open that, it hit me from all the way over here.
Yeah, and what you get is also a load of oxidative characteristics, so aged kind of characteristics that has that kind of caramel, sticky kind of vibe. And that comes from the fact that lots of these beers will have been aged for a long time in tank, they'll have been aged for a long time in bottle, they'll hopefully be bottle conditioned, certainly this one is, I don't think the next two will be. And that means that they're kind of vintage ales. And that's where the English definition of a barley wine comes from. So it goes all the way back to like the 19th century, 1800s, when people were brewing milds and they were brewing old ales, and they used to blend them. So a mild was just a young beer, an old ale was an old beer, and you blend them, or you sell them. Like the old ale would be much more expensive.
Yeah.
Or you blend it with a mild and get a mix, or you'd have the mild, which is the cheaper beer. And somewhere along the line, or at least according to Zivophile, which is my favourite beer history website, a great guy called Martin Cornell, people started calling these old ales, occasionally they call them barley wines. And what it seems to be is that perhaps British breweries were trying to take a little bit of the wine market, trying to compete with the French wines that were coming in, and say you could have a big, strong, nourishing, hearty and high-class beer.
It sounds fancy. As soon as you put the word wine in front of anything, you're like, oh, I'm fancy.
Really annoying, because beer's fancy.
But But I mean, like, you know, 19th century beer was your everyman sort of drink. They weren't drinking a lot of water necessarily.
They're drinking a lot of mild beer. But, I mean, old ale was bloody expensive, like 3 or 4 times the price of just standard mild. So it was always drunk by the higher classes anyway, but they were just trying to hammer that win home before the French came in.
Yeah, I mean, the Victorians were great at branding stuff, so it sounds like an early branding exercise.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the references to barley wine are in advertisements. And they only start sort of being characterised and only start being used by the brewers themselves a little bit later on.
Right.
So most of the evidence we get is from adverts for like Bass number 1. So yeah, let's give it a taste. Let's see if it is as complex and exciting as a French red. No. But it's lovely. It's I'd say there's lots of kind of herby medicinal qualities on top of that lovely toffee,
sticky,
caramel, really sticky.
Yeah. I love that burnt. It's like a burnt caramel kind of stuff going on for me.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not. I wouldn't say it's hugely complex, but it is wonderfully balanced.
Yeah,
and that comes from the fact. So we'll get talking about hops in barley wines in a minute. English barley wines are generally seen as not that hoppy, but they do need to be quite bloody hoppy, just to balance the sweetness that you get from the beer. Actually, the descriptor on this is really good, which is not always true of beer labels, sadly. But rich fruit flavours with marzipan, herbal hoppiness, and cognac overtones. I think that cognac is that oxidation sherry almost kind of vibe to it.
It's definitely got that kind of sherry. It's reminded me a bit going to my sort of great aunt's house when they were drinking. They're like cracking open the little decanter of sweet sherries.
Yeah, definitely. Best served by a log fire with snow on the ground at the Black Bull Inn, Coniston, which is the brewery's pub.
That's a lovely romantic description.
It's a lovely pub as well, in a beautiful village, Coniston. So the American barley wine.
Oh yeah.
So this is not a beer made in America. This is an American style barley wine.
Okay.
And these came about from Sierra Nevada and Anchor. Almost the Holy Trinity. I don't think Brooklyn have ever done a barley wine, not that I know of. And they basically, like they did at the start, in the late 70s, early 80s, they took British styles and hopped them to fuck. That was their approach.
It's the American way, right?
It's the American way. So this is, to all intents and purposes, a super hopped British barley wine.
So it should be a lot more bitter.
Probably, more bitterness, maybe some more actual hop character.
Right.
There's a great story I read about how Sierra Nevada sent off their first ever barley wine called Bigfoot to the lab to check everything was hunky-dory. And the lab came back going, yeah, it's all great, but it's too bitter. Oh. To which Sierra Nevada apparently replied, thank you.
Too bitter for the style.
Too bitter for the style.
That's interesting.
Or maybe just for palates generally. So the first thing you'll see with this beer is it's much darker. So there aren't really any kind of rules as to how dark or what kind of malts should go into it, just that it has to be malt forward. So it could be really, really blonde, like Fuller's Vintage Ale.
Yeah.
It could be kind of dark amber like that one was, or it could be, verging on stout. Definitely Belgian double or Belgian quad kind of colours and like lovely rich ruby.
It's a ruby red, isn't it, almost?
There's another nice thing I read in my research about how the brewers, because they wanted it to compete with wine, they tried to make the beer red, which would have probably been this colour, so it looked a bit like red wine.
Really?
I don't know whether that's true, sounds like bullshit, but it's a fun story. Right, so the first thing I smell off of that is the smell that if anybody was drinking Sierra Nevada like 6-7 years ago in the UK, when you got deeply unfresh Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, you get that hugely oxidized hop character. That slight cardboard, slight caramel, slight dank kind of aroma, wet cardboard kind of vibes.
Yeah.
But with the stickiness, it's actually quite nice, whereas on a Pale Ale, it was not so great. Maybe some lovely licorice as well. That I think will be coming from the darker malts.
Right.
It's a stunt at that, isn't it?
It's great. Yeah, it's great, that. Oh, it's lovely.
Loads of liquor. We should say this is Marble, one of the OGs of the British craft beer movement up in Manchester, making amazing beers like Pint long before the revolution kind of kicked off. And their traditional British pub is absolutely awesome, the Marble Arch in Manchester. Licorice, very burnt caramel. Again, kind of a sherry or a cognac kind of vibe. Always kind of a delightful booziness, not a overly stressed ferment ethanol kind of vibe, but a rich, round, fruity booze.
This does make me feel quite sophisticated drinking this.
Yeah?
Drink. Yeah. Oh yeah. I need a bubble pipe or something and a smoking jacket.
Smoking jackets, pipes, mature cheese. That's what this is built for. So it'd be remiss of us to do a barley wine video without talking about a barrel-aged barley wine.
Right.
Because that's just the height of craft as far as I'm concerned. It's an almost undrinkably strong, dark, incredibly hoppy beer that you then take into a barrel.
Forever.
That also takes forever, proper slow beer. So we were very lucky to get a pre-release of this year's vintage of Maiden. So this is Maiden 2019. We're filming in 2020, obviously, but
yes.
So it was the stuff that was brewed last year. Maiden, I think it was the first beer that Siren ever brewed. So that's why they called it Maiden.
Right, okay, maiden voyage.
Exactly, back when all of their beers were named after sea things. So they had Maiden, Undercurrent, Liquid Mistress, stuff like that, all sort of folklore from the sea. So Maiden, they brewed a big barley wine and they aged it in what they say is a multitude of barrels. When they release it every year, so that'll be in about a month's time from when we're filming this in March, you'll get, they tend to release like the single barrel versions as well, so people can taste it or blend themselves on the night, which is really good fun. And I'm going to try and get into this goddamn wax cap.
You need a knife. What the dickens? What's going on with this wax? Like plastic wax.
Thought he had it. He thought he had it.
It's riveting, isn't it? This, Johnny. God, we wouldn't do great as survival guys, would we?
Well, I don't think when you're surviving, the main thing is to open your waxed cork.
Oh my God!
Cage beers.
Oh, easy. There we go.
Easy.
Easy. Anyone can do it.
Easy as you like. So let's give this one a go. Let's see what barrels we pick up.
Oof. Oh my God.
Bloody hell. I mean, it's bear in mind this has another month of mellowing out in the bottle to go.
Yeah, but, that is not mellow. That's like rum, man. That's like white rum to me, which is
I'm getting loads of vanillin. It won't be white rum because it's been in a barrel.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, it's reminding me of white rum, which gives me nightmares. But I love dark rum. It's spicy bad boy. It's
there's
spicy.
Loads of rum spice. There's loads of bourbony vanillin. Some kind of banana characteristics as well, which could be yeast, could be barrel. Soft hints of caramel and toffee. None of that medicinal quality that the other two have had. But you've got to highly hop it. If it's going to go into barrel, you don't want any funky stuff coming in, and the hops help to preserve it in its original state.
I feel like I could put a lighter on here and it'll just go... Wow, it's actually really quite sedate.
Smooth, dry, lovely vanilla and oak finish. Coats your tongue in that slightly tannic kind of way, but also with a little bit of boozy burn, as if you've just had a shot of whiskey.
Yeah, it's definitely got a whiskey thing.
It's hot, but it's in control.
Now I'm going back in, it's got a little bit of a sort of peaty whiskey thing going on.
Yeah, maybe there is some Scotch barrel there. I mean, that is the definition of a complex beer. Like we could sit there and list about 30 different aromas and about 10 different flavours, and then let it warm up a couple of degrees, and then do the same with completely different flavours.
Yeah, totally.
There's so much going on.
This is even darker than the last one. So we've gone from quite an ambery sort of guy to a red to quite a dark brown, I would say. But
again, no roast characteristic.
No.
And that again is in the BJCP and also in all the historical texts that I've read. Like, if it starts to get roast characters, then you're going into porter. And if it's got loads, you're going into stout.
Okay.
You know, it's not supposed to have any roasty characteristics. It's supposed to be sweet, toffee, caramel, dark fruit. And that's kind of what separates the stout, porter, barley wine /
yes,
old ale. And of course, in another direction, the Belgian quads and triples, which would have different fruits, and in a quad, maybe a little bit of roast.
I think I love barley wines, John.
Is barley wine life?
I wouldn't say it's life, and I wouldn't say it's death.
Barley wine, because life's complicated enough.
Exactly. But it's great stuff, isn't it?
I think it's a wonderful beer, and it's a great introduction if you love big, strong beers. It's a great way to try and get into malt flavours, to try and understand malt flavours.
I think you could go from the strong Belgium stuff sideways, like you say. If you love that, you could go into barley wines.
Yeah, well, I mean, lots of Belgian breweries have started brewing sort of barley wine style things. Everyone's learning from everyone, which is why when you've got a style as old as this, like 200 years old, that's why it's so hard to find the story, because everyone's seeing like them advertising like that or brewing like that and going, oh, that's a good idea, and everybody starts doing it and everyone forgets where it came from. And
then you could almost jump in from the sort of porter end as well.
Definitely, the fruity kind of porters. If you're going to brew like an imperial porter, which no one ever talks about, always becomes imperial stout for some reason at that point. But yeah, I mean, an imperial porter could also very much be something a bit like this. So yeah, a barley wine is what you make of it. Life's what you make it. As the great talking heads once said.
Box of chocolates.
That doesn't really apply.
None of these taste like chocolate.
Well, there you go. The barley wine's starting to talk. So I hope that was educational for you guys. I hope that helps. If you have had some amazing barley wines in your time, please do let us know and we'll try and track some down. These are all ones that were in my stash. I had 7 in my stash and none of them were American barley wine. So thanks to Captain Taps for sorting me out with this in my moment of need. I was literally knocking on the door before it opened, going, "I need a barley wine," like a very rich alcoholic.
Oh, that's a very alcoholic move. Yeah,
yeah,
about to do that one.
And guys, remember that everything that we do is funded by the power of people over at Patreon. So please do, if you've got a couple of dollars to spare, keep us swimming, or bathing, sorry, in barley wine.
Bathing in barley wine.